Hi guys, welcome to another LivinginSAtv podcast, video podcast. David here. Today we will speak about shark conservation in South Africa, and for this I invited the White Shark Projects located in the Western Cape in Hermanus. And this will be an amazing conversation, so stay tuned because you guys are going to learn a lot. But let me tell you guys a few curiosities about sharks. Do you guys know that sharks can have around 20,000 teeth throughout their lives? Do you guys know that the Greenland shark can live for hundreds of years? Do you guys know that in South Africa we have 170 species of shark in our coastline, from 500 documented all around the world? If you guys want to learn more, don't forget to stay tuned because once again this video will blow your mind. Welcome to another LivinginSAtv podcast. Today we're going to talk about the White Shark Projects, which is located in Hermanus in the Western Cape, South Africa. And today we're going to have three special guests to speak about the White Shark Project. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi David, very well, thank you.
Perfect. So we have Jessica Smith, which is the CEO of the project. We have Ryan Cake, which is the Senior Tagging Officer, and we have Anna Rude, which is the marine biologist behind the project. And we're going to ask a few questions in order to learn more about the magnificent white shark in South Africa. Are we ready, guys?
Yeah, let's
Perfect.
do it.
Yeah, we're ready. Yeah,
we're ready.
Okay, so the first question will be for Jessica. Jessica, tell us about the White Shark Project, please.
Okay, no problem. Well, good morning, everybody. White Shark Projects was actually founded in 1989 as a research institute, but has grown then to include a commercial diving centre. So mainly clients that come from all over the world, and they come to cage dive with white sharks, mainly. So we do provide that service, but apart from that service, we provide we have a volunteer program, international volunteer program, which has been running for 15 years. And with that, in the volunteer program, we have students from all over the world. Some are marine biology based or ocean based, marine based, and some people are not at all. It's something that they wanted to experience and to learn and come and see more about, and to find out if this is something that they really want to become involved in. So even though White Shark Projects is predominantly a cage diving company where you can book your cage diving online, we do offer other services. So on board our boats, we have marine biologists and an experienced guide. And we don't just talk about, it's not just kind of like a bucket list thing for us. I know it's a bucket list for a lot of other people, but we really want to educate the clients on board in the struggle that we have daily in conserving our oceans and conserving our planet, and also from supporting our community. And White Shark Projects has 3 non-profit organisations registered under its name. 2 of those are 2 recycle swap shops, both based in Hansby, one in the Blum Park area and one in the Masakani area. So every Tuesday and Thursday after school, the children come with their recyclable materials to our different swap shop locations. For exchange of these materials, they get given points, and these points are redeemable inside the shop. So they can buy basic school supplies, calculators, pens, books, colouring books, clothes, basic food items. So through this, we allow our day clients, our cage diving clients, to come through and participate with this at no extra cost. And then this is something that's automatically included in the volunteer program, what we expect from volunteers to participate in. And this education, when we go to the schools and we talk about how important recycling is, really is to that next generation, because children, it might sound cliche, really are our future. And when we're battling so much with pollution and, you know, everything is linked, we're all linked to the ocean. So everything we do in our daily lives, especially here in South Africa, where recycling isn't top priority, where it really should be. You know, it's really about educating those kids and getting them to separate the recyclable materials, cleaning up their townships and their neighbourhoods and their environment to allow them to lead cleaner, healthier lives and live well in their community, and know that by working hard, you really can reap the rewards of those benefits for future. And our other non-profit organisation is the Ocean Defenders, which is our children, which is about 10 to 12 of them. They come every fortnightly to us, where they get hands-on access to our boats, to our skippers, to all our crew, to our biologists. We give them presentations. We do tangible upcycling with them, show how they can upcycle their own glass and plastic in their own homes. And we try and make it fun for them. We take them out to Betty's Bay and Cape Town to the aquarium. We do beach cleanups with them. The last time, Ryan, a couple of weeks ago, took them for a beach clean, and then we actually found two discarded soup fin sharks. I'm not quite sure, Ryan, did you just find, I think we just found the heads. They'd cut off the heads. So poachers had cut off the heads.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so we learn that we teach the children how we try not to, we do talk about poaching with them, but there is actually a big poaching community here in Hansby, and that's how a lot of people are surviving at the moment. So we touch on the poaching, but we don't go as in depth with them, as we don't, how can I say it, as the community around us it relies on poaching to keep it going. The abalone is a big thing here. 5 weeks ago, we had a white shark wash up with its head removed. It must have washed up on the beach. Poach had seen it first, cut the head off. So it's a very sensitive subject, but it's happening here. And sometimes you hear about it being controlled and police locking down and finding these poachers and confiscating X amount of abalone, but it's still happening all the time. So there's so many things that go into it. The children are allowed to go snorkeling. Our volunteers go snorkeling, and like Ryan said, he'll talk about that regarding the Oceanographic Research Institute and the Erasmus grant research that we're connected to. And we teach the children about that. Same with our volunteers. They come from all over the world, and you know, the last thing I want to see them with is walking out the shop with a plastic bag in their hand. You know, we give all our volunteers reusable shopping bags, reusable water bottles. Clients that come on the boat, we're the only plastic. Talk about this to clients when they arrive in the safety briefing. We talk about the number of sharks that are left in the ocean. We talk about how we reduce plastic in every way we can. We give them, we cost into their fee a reusable water bottle with obviously our logo on it that we fill with filter water, and they can take home with them at the end of the day. And we talk about the non-plastics. All our COVID safety protocols in place. We put the cheese in a glass jar. Everybody gets their own little glass jar, which obviously we can wash out and reuse. And we cut down on plastic as much as we possibly can. And we really try and teach the clients about this as well, and why it's important. And they do learn a lot, and people come back to volunteer from coming as a day client. And yeah, I mean, I could really go on about this. I'm really passionate about this. So education through this activity. Some people kind of may frown upon cage diving and compare it to zoo-like activities. But I really think people have got to be here to see how it is, and to learn from our biologists and our guides and from our tagging officers to really see the struggle that we fight every single day. So sorry, there's a bit of a long answer to the few of the questions, but I hope that helps.
It's fascinating, no worries. I completely understand. Thank you very much for that. Let's talk a little bit about sharks, and let's find out, first question, are they social creatures or social animals?
Yeah, so I think I'll pick up on this one. So when we're talking about like sharks in general, it kind of depends on the species. So for instance, we have the lemon sharks that I've worked with in Bimini in the Bahamas, where there's been studies that show from a juvenile stage they actually learn from each other, and they actually learn to hunt and navigate the mangroves actually with each other, which is actually very, really fascinating. We have the black tip sharks, which are on the eastern Cape of South Africa, which have been observed hunting in packs with them around big balls of sardines to basically like pull them off the surface. And then the shark will take turns actually have a go and kind of like get their share of food. And when it comes to like white sharks, they're mainly solitary animals. However, there has been studies done over the past couple of years where they will actually follow each other in very, very loose groups. So a lot of very, very apex predators, they like to actually, because they're so large, they actually like to have their own different space like between each other. However, like we found like from our data over the years that the same sharks do come back every single time of the year, and they're often followed by other sharks. So we often call these like loose groups. So like it's probably theorized that these sharks, say like a big female will like come into the bay, but then she will be followed by maybe males and females of maybe a similar size or smaller also. But they don't follow around very, very close in like very, very social groups because like they like the personal space. But what I've seen around that, they do exhibit various levels of body language when they're interacting with each other. So there is a certain degree of hierarchy when it comes around to being dominant around the boat. So necessarily you would have a 5-meter white shark that is very, very dominant, and the other sharks actually will stay away from them. She'll probably exhibit that behavior by maybe like opening her mouth or dropping her pectoral fins and maybe arching her back to say, you know, like, I'm the boss in the area.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, so
it's kind of interesting.
I was going to add, well, like,
yes.
Yeah, I was just going to add also, like, we've also found, like, in the small species of sharks that we do tag and release, also like the shy shark, the leopard cat shark, and the pajama sharks, and also to a degree the spotted gully shark that we do get. They actually have been exhibited like resting together during the day. They're normally nocturnal hunters, so like during the day they probably rest under rocks with each other because they like almost have safety in numbers, because these sharks are not necessarily the apex predators. We often see safety in numbers also.
Wow, that's fascinating, because I learned a little bit about sharks. I've seen some documentaries and stuff, and sharks are a perfect example of ocean engineering. The way they are designed, the way everything in a shark is just beautifully done. It was just a beautiful piece of engineering done by nature itself.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's go to the next question. So the next question is, what are the role of sharks in the ocean?
Okay, cool. I think I'll take this one. But no, I totally agree with you. I think sharks are meticulously designed predators. When you look at the different features that they have, they've perfectly evolved and adapted to their role in the ocean. And so I think a really good analogy to describe the role that sharks play in the ocean is that they're essentially the doctors of the ocean. And what I mean by that is sharks are apex predators, and what they do is they predate on sick, weak, and injured or less fit other species within the food web. So that might be their prey. That is their prey, sorry. So for example, it might be something like a Cape fur seal, or it might be a species of fish. And that essentially what that does is that keeps the ecosystem in check. And it can also maintain the genetic diversity within those species as well. So if you have an imbalance of sharks, for example, say the population is declining, that can have catastrophic implications for the rest of the food web. So the next species down that the shark predates on, for example, their population may explode, and then that will lead to other species below them being more heavily predated on. So the whole ecosystem can fall out of whack if there's not a healthy shark population present. And for that reason, sharks are an indicator of ocean health. And I think that's a really brilliant quote by Dr. Sylvia Earle that actually really sums this up. And she says, you should be scared if you're in the ocean and you don't see sharks. So it's in all of our interests to have a healthy shark population. As Jessica was saying right at the beginning, we're all connected to the ocean, and sharks are a really fundamental part of that because of the role that they play. So it's in all of our interests to ensure that there's that healthy population and to conserve them for future generations.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so next question. Okay, so how smart are sharks exactly? We know they are very intelligent creatures, but how intelligent?
Yeah. So it's one of those things that when people ask me that question, I always ask people, like, how do you define intelligence? Do you define it in human terms? Do you define it by, like how you communicate with, with your fellow species? Like, or do you define it as, like how well you adapted to survive? So with sharks, their brains are very, very different to, say, for, like a mammal, like a whale, like us, Sharks are more like, I like to describe them as a very, very highly sophisticated computer almost, because they obviously will like think about things, but they're thinking about things in a very more instinctual way, because they're processing so much more sensory information than we are. So they have like 6 senses. They have smell, taste, touch. They have the lateral line system. They have electromagnetic sensors. They are basically processing so much of their environment, and that they obviously use these sensors to kind of like dictate, where they will go to mate, where they will go to find food, how they will navigate, the vast majority of like our oceans. So it's not like they are, they can think and talk and maybe like figure out problems like maybe like like a chimpanzee or like a human might, but like they're still processing so much more sensory information that they're super like built for their environment. So in terms of like intelligence, it's like it's great sensory intelligence, because they're just processing so much of this information, and they can basically do so much more that we don't even fully understand yet. There's been recordings of tiger sharks moving from island to island across the world just to put it on albatross and sea turtles, and they managed to show up at the exact same time every single time of the year. So is that a memory thing? Is that based on their ability to navigate the Earth shield using their lateral line system? The all thing about the lemon sharks also. So lemon sharks in the Bahamas go back to the same place to give birth where they were born. So that's again, it is something which is built in within their genetics. It's something what they use their senses to kind of like navigate, but it shows like a fantastic degree of intelligence, you could say, to go back to the same place, because it will be safe there. I was born there, therefore I will go there to go give birth also. So yeah, it's really, really fantastic how they process their environment and to actually get to where they need to be.
Well, fascinating. The inspiration that we humans get from sharks, the swimming suits, diving suits, surfboards. By the way, does sharks navigate in the ocean like dolphins a little bit, like a sonar type of integrated system in them? How do they navigate?
So it's again like what I was saying earlier, like there are many like scientific theories as to why, and we do believe that many species of sharks maybe use different kinds of their sensors, because some species of sharks will be more attuned to have certain sensors. So for instance, with the hammerheads, because they have the really big hammer on their head that is full of their electromagnetic sensors. So they use that mainly for like finding their prey, but then they also could use that to actually navigate the electromagnetic field of the Earth also. And they also have the lateral line system, which all fish have, which is a nerve running all the way down the side of their body, which detects changes in pressure and things like that. There's also, even though they're not strictly sharks, but they are of the same family, manta rays have been found to actually use visual landmarks underwater to actually navigate their oceans. So they will see maybe like a cliff or like a certain reef structure underwater, and they will actually use that to basically like navigate, like how we would navigate in our car, like through the wilderness.
That's fascinating. It's just horrible to know that these amazing creatures are being poached and cutting their heads off, and it's just I don't know, it's disgusting, really. Okay, so next question, guys. How do you tell a shark's age? How old do you know how a shark is?
Well, in general, so of course it'll differ by species, but in general, what we do at the side of the boat is we will estimate a shark's age roughly using its length as an indicator. So if it's between 1 to 2 years, 1 to 2 meters, it's more likely to be a juvenile, whereas when it starts to encroach to sort of the 3 to 5 meter mark, it's maturing as an individual But in general, as a rule of thumb as well, and I don't condone this, but scientists generally, if they have dead sharks, they might have them as discards or bycatch, or like the one Ryan found on the beach, for example, when they're doing really detailed scientific studies, how they will assess the age of a shark and use collect more data so that we have a better understanding of the different species, is they will essentially use the vertebrae rings. So when you can cut into a piece of shark vertebrae, and it's very similar to shark rings. So with each year of growth, you can essentially see another ring, and they can go into that and they can find all kinds of information out about the shark, where it's been, potentially what it's eaten, how old it is, as an estimation. But then there's other species. So for example, the Greenland shark, they carbon date its eye, its lens around its eye, to have an estimation of age there, because it's very difficult to actually use the vertebrae in that particular species. But again, that's all when it's dead and it's lived its life, and hopefully it's lived a long, happy life before it ends up on a scientist's cutting table. But whilst it's alive, generally, we use length as a rule of thumb.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the next question. The next question is, how do sharks hear?
Yes, I think I'll take this one. So even though, like with us humans, like we have like external ears, many other mammals, apart from marine mammals, do have external ears also. But sharks have what we call like an the ear. So their ear, like its bones, very, very similar to our own human ear, and it works just like how our ear works. So when a sound wave hits the ear, and they have the tiny hairs inside the ear which actually will move, and that will actually produce the sound. So as you may know, David, sound travels like roughly 4 times faster in water than it does in air. So sharks are particularly like sensitive to picking up this kind of like a struggling prey item. So sharks are very, very attuned to low frequency vibration in the water, because it may lead them to a prey source. So for instance, there's a certain species of shark which is my personal favorite, called the oceanic whitetip. Some scientists did a study where they took his canoe out, and he basically put a waterproof speaker into the water and maybe 5 meters, and he played like a very, very low frequency, almost like a booming sound underneath a known provisioning site, and within 20 minutes he had 2 or 3 oceanic whitetip sharks appear on the boat. So the fact that he would actually emit like a very low frequency sound under the water without any other stimulus in the water, it just goes to show like how sensitive sharks are to hearing. It's one of their main senses, what they use to actually predate, and then also probably navigate their environment also.
Wow. That's I'm telling you, the more I hear you guys, the more fascinated I get with this subject. Okay, how many teeth does a shark get through his lifetime, to have an idea?
Yeah, so sharks actually experience something that I think is pretty cool, and it's called serial teeth replacement. So they are continually fixed to a shark's jaw, as most people may believe. It's actually quite fleshy, and they can easily come out. I reckon they go through around 20,000 teeth in their lifetime, which is an enormous amount of teeth. And they have quite a few different rows behind their jaw of fresh teeth ready to go, and replace them as they go through them in their life. So this is actually many millions of years old, but just so you can get like an approximation of size. But yeah, they go through thousands of teeth in their lifetime, and they've always got more behind ready to go.
Okay, let's go to statistics, and I think that's also very important. What is the white shark population in South Africa?
All right, so I can take this one of yours. There has been various studies done by numerous scientists, and some people do, and they do have like differing numbers, but The numbers that mainly come out is somewhere between 400 and 1,000 white sharks left in the entire of the Southern African population. So that's not just South Africa, because our white sharks here do move up the coast of Mozambique. They also go up the west coast of Namibia. So between 400 to 1,000 individuals across the whole of the Southern African population. And this was majority done with by a mix of methods, including acoustic tracking to telemetry, from taking pictures of dorsal fins and comparing dorsal fin pictures, but it's also been done by genetics also. It's been mixed through various scientists with various studies, and the numbers that kind of like keep popping up are somewhere between 400 to 1,000 white sharks left in the entire of the Southern African population.
Oh my God, I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. I'm really shocked.
Really?
I'm really shocked.
There's a statistic that there's more rhinos left in South Africa than there are white sharks in the world, which I think is quite.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
It is like a really scary thing. So in South Africa, there was a very troubling sign with the population. However, it's not all bad news for white sharks. So, for instance, in off the coast of California in the US, and then also off Cape Cod, Massachusetts, also they have been seeing rising white shark numbers, particularly with juveniles and also larger females also. So, but we do not know yet whether this is because of they are moving close to shore because we are seeing them more, or it's the case that there are actually more individuals there. So it's still early days for scientists to actually gauge the population size there, but it seems to be a good sign in other parts of the world where white sharks still have a healthy population. It seems that they actually face numerous challenges here in South Africa, which is very unfortunate.
Okay, so the next question is, what is the perception that people have from sharks in the media? Because we have Jaws, we have Sharknado, we have all these movies that give this wrong perception about sharks to people. So what is your opinion about that?
Okay, so I'll take this one. So something I'm particularly interested in studying is the perception that the public, or yourselves or anyone that walks down the street, has of sharks as a result of the media and movies and imagery that they might have seen on social media about sharks. And obviously you can't talk about this without talking about Jaws. It's the reason that a lot of people work in shark conservation today, because they were inspired by the sheer power and beauty of these apex predators. But at the same time, it's also made a lot of people unnecessarily afraid of sharks. And I was just saying before the break, one of the most fulfilling parts for me of working in a dive operation with great white sharks is that you can see people's perception of them change. And they get a newfound sort of appreciation and understanding of what these animals are and what they're about, versus what you think they're about and what you assume they're about as a result of consuming all of this media. Every summer we're bombarded with, here in the UK, for example, we're bombarded with stories that are saying, terrifying basking shark is off the coast of Cornwall, devastates swimmers' day. And but a basking shark is a filter feeder. It poses no harm to humans. So I think that's a really important part and a role that cage diving can play. And it's scientifically proven as well that by going on these cage diving boats, you can challenge the perception of the media and the Hollywood that they've put into our brains about sharks. And be inspired to take action, because if anyone's the villain in this story, it's humans. And I'm sure we'll go on to this later on, but sort of 100 million sharks are killed every year for a whole range of reasons that, as I say, we'll go on to later. And it's really important, I think, that the public has a better understanding of sharks, because another study has actually shown that public attitudes towards an animal indicate how willing they are to support that conservation. So many conservation campaigns are typically fronted by whales and dolphins because we think that they're big friendly animals, whereas sharks, generally, we think they're quite scary and that we're better off without them. But as we've already discussed, they're a crucial part of the ecosystem. So I think it's really important to challenge those perceptions and that imagery. And just educate. Education is the most powerful tool in the entire world. And I think it's, yeah, as I say, it's really important that we do that.
Yeah, I was going to say also there that another great question what you did pose about, like what are the major problems for sharks? So I'm just going to start talking about particularly in South Africa. So, like as Hannah said, one of the major problems that we have in conserving sharks is that the public do see them as these mindless monsters, and and a great quote, we will never ever conserve, what we love. But particularly then, because of people have this perception, basically sharks almost can be persecuted or threatened in a way without what's the word? Without reconcile, basically. So particularly in South Africa and many other parts of the world, there actually are targeted commercial fishing industries for sharks. So that there are several long lining boats that do operate in South Africa, which actually do go out target a species of shark. So if you're not aware what a long line is a very long piece of line, sometimes hundreds of miles long, with baited hooks. Some are dedicated to actually catch sharks, then most are actually there to catch other large pelagic or deep sea fish such as swordfish or sailfish or tuna, which are consumed in vast quantities by fisheries and by people all over the world. But I can tell you now, if you put a bait hook into the water in South Africa, you are most likely going to get a shark caught on that. So sharks get caught by catching those fisheries, and most of the time they actually are brought on board. They can either be taken back whole, or their fins are simply chopped off and the body is then discarded. The thing with targeted longline fisheries here in South Africa, so if we go to talk about with our white sharks in a minute, one of the main theories that some people believe why there is a declining number is because people believe that the white shark spend most of their time predating on marine mammals such as the Cape fur seal, where the necropsies and dissections have shown that between 60 and 70% of their normal diet is actually some smaller species of shark. So we have the sharks such as the soupfin, the smoothhound, and the spotted gully, dogfish. So our white sharks actually, particularly the juveniles, spend a lot of time eating and predating and relying on these smaller species of sharks to basically enhance their growth, or to require to actually grow and actually be healthy adults. But because we're removing them out of the ocean, because the soupfin and the smoothhounds are very, very prized in the meat trade. So in Australia, for instance, their number one fish and chip is known as flake. Many Australians do not actually know that this is actually shark meat. So a lot of sharks in South Africa which are caught, such as the soupfin, the smoothhounds, and even our bronze whaler sharks, they're actually caught here by commercial fishermen, and then the meat is exported to Australia. So by removing that main source of food, we are creating more competition between individuals, and probably because there is lack of food source in certain areas, our sharks are probably moving to different areas, avoiding the coast altogether.
Well, no, it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem that we have a teeny amount of time to sort this out quickly before the shark population goes completely extinct. Okay,
yeah,
so next.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
So I was just going to say, if I could just add to that as well, I think a lot of people in general, so sharks aren't just fish, they're a specialized type of fish called an elasmobranch, or a wider group called chondrichthyes, that encompasses sharks, rays, skates and chimeras. And one of the reasons why all of these pressures that Ryan's just spoken about are such problems is because their life history characteristics differ so much from other groups of fish, so bony fish known as teleos fish. So they have elasmobranchs, so sharks have life history characteristics that are a lot more akin to mammals. So they mature late sexually. They have a low fecundity, which basically means that with each reproductive cycle, they have a small amount of pups. They have a slow growth, and they have a slow growth rate too. So it can take, I think, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can take a female white shark 30 plus years to reach sexual maturity. So when you're considering that this animal that is being persecuted and having threats thrown at it from left, right and centre is having to navigate the ocean and go around its life for 30 years before it can even have a chance of breeding successfully, it's quite a staggering I'm not even 30 yet. So to think if I was a white shark, I would still be, moving around and maturing in the ocean before even having a chance to maybe like romance a male white shark at some point. It's really staggering. And I think that really drives home what a terrible state we really are in terms of shark conservation. For example, the short fin mako shark as well in the northeast Atlantic, they reckon if we stopped longlining today, it would take 50 plus years for the stock to replenish. So I just wanted to mention that because I think it really puts context into why we're in the situation that we're in and why these threats are so huge in comparison with other fish stocks that can easily rebound. I just wanted to add to that.
Well, I'm completely horrified. I'm mind blown by that.
Sorry, it's rather depressing for a Friday, isn't it?
No. I was completely unaware that the sexual maturity of a shark will be 30 years. That's mind blowing for me. I thought after 2-3 years it will be, or even less.
It can depend on the species. I mean, you talk about Greenland sharks, it can be hundreds of years. I mean, that's the world's longest living vertebrate that can live sort of 500 odd years. So it takes a considerable amount of time for her to be ready and him to be ready for sexual maturity. So
it's true, because I read a news like 2 weeks ago that went viral, that they found a shark with 362 years old. And I think it was exactly that species. So it's actually true.
Yep.
Wow.
It is true. Yep.
That's crazy, yeah. I thought this is crazy. Can't be true, but okay. Seems like again the media, the idea that people have from sharks are completely wrong. And thank you very much, guys, for teaching us that, because that's quite important. And let's go to our next question, which is, I think this is quite interesting. Do sharks get diseases like cancer, for example, or not really?
So I'll take this one. And this isn't my area of expertise, so I'll just preface that. But there's been a lot of talk that sharks don't get cancer, and this can be one of the drivers for targeting them for traditional medicines in various cultures, for example. But actually, no, it's not true. Sharks do indeed get cancer. It's rarer than in other species due to their physiology. But the first tumor in a cancer was found, the first cancerous tumor in a shark, sorry, I need to put my teeth in this morning, was found in 1908. So we've known about it for quite a while, that sharks can get cancerous growths. Now, there has been some discussion that shark DNA could be used to identify potential treatments for cancer. And one of those reasons is because shark DNA, particularly the great white shark DNA, I believe is 1.5 times the size of human DNA. So there's a lot of opportunity there potentially for various different genes that could be used in gene therapy, for example. We know sharks have very impressive recovery rates from wounds, for example. So there's all just areas where there could be potential for that. However, they are not immune to cancer, and consuming shark will not make you immune to cancer either.
It's a very good point. Especially like the shark fin soup is very common in places like Japan or China and all that.
To be honest with you, if anything, I'm not sure if we've touched this, but sharks essentially, because of where they sit on the food chain, they bioaccumulate all of the toxins and the pollutants and the chemicals that they consume, that their prey have consumed, and it basically magnifies as it goes up the food chain. And as we've discussed, the ocean is becoming increasingly polluted. There's really harmful chemicals in there, whether it's plastic or agricultural pollution or pharmaceuticals, for example. They can do really, really quite devastating jobs to different species. So consuming shark meat, you're actually consuming a lot of those heavy metals and pollutants as you do it, plastics, things like that. So if you want to be healthy, and I appreciate that not everyone has the luxury of choice here, so it's important to say that, but eating shark meat wouldn't be my first choice if I wanted to have a healthy diet, personally.
Correct. It's a good point. It's a very good point. Okay, guys, next question, which will be, how many species of sharks do we have in our shore here in South Africa? To have an idea.
Yeah, sorry, so we've divvied up questions and this one's mine too. So South Africa is a top 5 biodiversity hotspot for sharks. It's one of the best places to encounter sharks and other elasmobranchs in the world. And it's actually home to 117 different species, representing all major families of shark. So it's a fantastic place to get up close and personal, responsibly, with sharks, and then really engage with them. In general, there's around 500 shark species worldwide, and we are discovering more and more year on year, particularly in the deep sea. And I think it's important for people to challenge their perception of what a shark looks like. We always think, that traditional great white shark shape, but actually sharks are more diverse than that. You've got flat sharks, you've got the cat sharks that Ryan was talking about, and there's the focal species of the tagging study that we're doing. But they all have the same characteristics, so that they're Ampulia lorenzini, so there's electroreceptors, for example, cartilaginous skeletons, a liver rather than a swim bladder. So everything amongst them, they're those defining characteristics, but they come in different shapes and sizes. And for example, one of the coolest sharks I think is the goblin shark, which is a really deep sea shark. It looks nothing like what you would expect a shark to look like, but it's bloody cool.
No, I was remembering that one, that ugly face, but it's such a beautiful species of shark at the same time. Like you said, because every one of them has their own characteristics, and we have small little sharks that can fit inside of a small aquarium to a whale shark, for example. So it's quite unbelievable what we can find. Okay, Ryan, this question will be, what are the most endangered species of sharks? To have an idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so because there are so many different species, and because we are finding new species all the time, it's very hard to gauge like how critically endangered most of our shark species actually are. So, for instance, there's a species of requiem shark, which is very similar to our bronze whaler, called the pondicherry shark. So this is found in the Indo-Pacific. So this is probably, I think they have only found 20 samples in the entirety of human history, and the last sighting of that shark was in 1971. So the IUCN, which is the organisation which provides the conservation listing for these animals, that is listed as critically endangered because it's just not been seen. But some of our most iconic shark species are actually listed now as critically endangered. So, for instance, we have the great hammerhead and also the scalloped hammerhead. Like probably one of the most iconic ocean predators or like animals in the world. And that is now listed as a critically endangered animal. And then we also have our angel shark, which are like more like a flat species that they live on the bottom. They are subject to a lot of bycatch from trawlers. So they are also listed now as critically endangered. But then for me, as I mentioned earlier, my favorite shark is the oceanic whitetip. So the oceanic whitetip spends its entire time in the middle of the ocean. It often gets blamed for attacks from shipwrecks and things like that. So it was often found maybe 50 years ago across the entirety of our open oceans. Whereas now, you can only really find them in the Red Sea in Egypt. You can only find them in Cat Island around the Bahamas. And it's estimated their population in the last 50 years has decreased by 99% in total. And these are one of the most iconic, beautiful shark species. Very, very inquisitive, very cool to look at. Very, very pretty with their white spots and their rounded shaped fins. So yeah, it's very, very sad that we are losing such iconic species. So drastically, and it won't be long before many other shark species, such as the short fin mako, and perhaps even our great whites and our blue shark and our threshers, and maybe our tiger shark will also go in the next couple of years to being threatened and vulnerable to endangered, which is very, very sad for a lot of things.
Okay, so I need to understand what has been done to prevent this type of stuff. I know that China, for example, they have these massive commercial ships that they indiscriminately they go around the world and fish everything they can find. So my question is, what are governments? What are the most powerful NGOs in the world doing to stop this? I know that the best way to stop it is by telling people, hey, don't eat shark, but people are not gonna stop eating shark because in most countries there's actually a tradition, and they think that actually gives medicinal type of properties to the body. But like Anna said already, that's completely unrealistic and it's surreal. So what are the measures out there to protect sharks, basically?
I'll touch on it briefly, but I think like Hannah's probably going to be the better one to answer on this. But I'll just touch on it very, very briefly. So many people like ask me, you know, like what can I do to make a difference to help sharks? So many people actually, first of all, it's to do with fishing. So like a lot of fish, as I mentioned earlier, is caught by trawling or by longlining. So these fisheries do incur a lot of bycatch for sharks. So bycatch is when you say you have a quote where you can just go out and catch tuna, but you catch shark, you catch hake, you catch cod, but you could then you can only keep the tuna basically. But then the bycatch, because they can't keep it, they have to throw it away. But because of the method of fishing, by the time that shark has already got towards the boat, the shark is dead. Back basically like wasted basically. So what I often say to people is that I know it's very, very simple for me to just to say stop eating fish, because I know like a lot of people around the world, particularly in poor countries, actually rely on fish as part of their main diet. But particularly for the Western world, I think it's very, very important that we are more conscious as to where our food and our fish comes from. So like it's very important when you are checking your labels to like make sure you know how your fish was caught, what's its how much bycatch is caught in that fishery. So just being like more aware where your fish comes from and how it was caught if you choose to actually do eat fish. My second thing would say, so this is another thing which not many people actually know about. So sharks are actually used in many, many different forms apart from their meat and their fins. So their cartilage skeletons, as Hannah said, has been actually like ground up and used in many medicines and vitamin and health supplements, and also like in protein shakes because they believe it's good to like help arthritis, it's good for your bones. So this is a material, it is a substance called chondroitin. So like it's not called shark, it's called chondroitin. So this is actually used in many, many day-to-day products. But because we don't know that chondroitin comes from sharks, we actually don't know. So what I would say to people, check your like health supplements for chondroitin, because it's actually most likely derived from sharks, because they are one of the only like cartilaginous fish like in the world. Secondly, the sharks obviously use a very large liver to keep and maintain their buoyancy. This liver is filled with a substance called squalene or squalene, which is a very, very rich oil. So this is used in many, many cosmetic products and like in hand lotion, body cream, things like that. Excuse me. So if you can check your makeup products or your shampoo, your conditioner, things like that, if you check for the word squalene or squalene, there are some plant-derived alternatives of squalene, but most of the time squalene will probably come from a liver of a shark. So it just means that consumers are more aware like what they are consuming and from these shark-related products, basically.
It's interesting what you're saying, because I know, for example, whale vomit is very widely used for cosmetic products, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question of Ryan's completely right in terms of things that consumers can do, but in terms of what governments are doing, and this is based on personal opinion and experience, and it's up to debate, but I would say the main drivers of governments around the world are two things: money and power. And as conservationists, what we need to do is essentially prove economically that these sharks are worth more alive than they are dead. And as voters, as constituents within various democracies around the world, as individuals of those countries, what we need to do is use our power of the ability to vote. I appreciate that in not every country in the world they have that luxury, but to vote for politicians that have environmental credentials at the heart of their manifestos and their policies, because politicians will do what their constituents want because they want power, and they will do what is economically in their best interests. So if we can prove that sharks are worth more alive than they are dead, and we do, there are existing studies at the moment about this. So for example, shark diving around the world is worth millions to economies, particularly in countries like South Africa and the Bahamas, where they have incredibly high populations and diverse populations of various different shark species. People come from all over the world to view these sharks and to experience them. And that is worth a hell of a lot socioeconomically to communities. It supports jobs, it supports livelihoods, it gives back to local economies. And these are all things that governments are interested in. You know, you can only kill a shark once, but you can view it on a dive multiple times. So I think that's really important. But then also to what Ryan said as well, I think it is important to also understand that not everyone around the world has the luxury of choice, and there are some communities that depend on sharks for their primary sources of protein. So where we have the choice to not consume shark products, we should take that direction. But if you're one of the people that unfortunately don't have that choice, then you obviously need to consume sharks in that case, and we need to focus as conservationists and scientists to make sure that those fisheries are as sustainable as possible, and that they're not overexploited. But just quickly going back to the voting principle as well, you know, educate yourself, listen to podcasts like this one, read books, speak to people, watch movies, learn as much as you possibly can about sharks, and lobby your government and take part in campaigns for pro-shark conservation policies to be put in place. I mean, here in the UK, and it's a bit arguable as to what the difference was, but there was recently a campaign to remove a loophole in our system that meant you could bring 20 kilograms of shark fin on your personal possession when you're entering the UK, and the shark fin trade was essentially using the UK as a middleman to transport these fins throughout the world. And it of course, you know, in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to make much of a difference to the shark fin trade. But what it does do is it proves to the government that we care about these issues, and we care about shark conservation, and we want stronger policies that reflect that. And I think that's a really good example of people getting behind pro-shark conservation policies and campaigns, and it actually working. You know, power to the people, as it were. You know, there's power in numbers, and we can't make a difference on our own, but collectively we can make a huge difference. So yeah, that's what I would say. There's still a long way to go. I don't think we can lie about that. But there is change coming, and the more people that join the movement, the better.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna. Okay, guys, this is we're going to finish it, and now I need to ask the last question to Jessica. Jessica, you have been so quiet, but now I'm giving you the microphone. And please tell us, how can people find out more about the White Shark Project?
People find out about White Shark projects, well, follow us on all the social media platforms that we have, the usual Instagram and Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and you can send us an email at volunteer@White Shark Projects if you want a volunteer information pack, and also check out our website. It's got all our details on www.whitesharkprojects.co.za. So thank you very much, David, for your time. You seem like a very lovely guy, and I'm really happy that we all got a chance to do this and sit together.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much for the knowledge. Thank you so much, you know, for caring about sharks. Thank you, because protecting sharks is basically protecting the environment, not excluding the other species in the ocean. But you know what? Let's see what can be done. I hope the word goes out to more people. Continue pumping content to social media for people to see. I will do also my best in order to to help your cause, because I think it's a humanitarian cause, not only locally but internationally.
Yeah. Cheers, David. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go, guys. This was another mind-blowing video podcast about animal conservation in South Africa. I will bring many more because we have lots to talk about. But anyway, don't forget to like, share, and destroy that like button. And I will see you in the next LivinginSAtv podcast.